So welcome back to the Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid, and this is your Cannabis Business Podcast. Today we're talking about automation and innovation in the hemp and cannabis industry. We are here live at the World Trade Center. I'm here with Arnar and Denny. They're with Greenvault Systems. I'm here with Jason of 420 Wholesale Pack, and then there's Andy of Poseidon Asset Management.
There's a lot of steps that go into it, and there's going to be a bud tender panel in July because all of these processes and steps and everything that goes into a finished cannabis product is almost wasted if the marketing and branding and packaging is flipped around just so the bud tender out of convenience can see the THC percentage on the back. So that's a topic for another podcast, but yeah, there's a lot that goes into it, and unfortunately, in the end, not all of it sells. And so, Andy, we're going to outline a solution which starts with developing a process, specifically define quality requirements. You can define the required minimum throughput versus output. You can consider the approximate floor space required and evaluate the ability to accommodate that, just like you mentioned. Defining an agreed upon purchase price with or without financing, considering the impacts of OSHA and other regulations and provisions. And so what automation options should be evaluated to try and reduce the cost of operations, and what types of financing are you seeing? Traditionally, there was convertible notes. I recently was hearing about debt financing, which is neat from a normalization standpoint. And then I kind of want to know about some other stuff like purchase order invoicing or factoring for people, like if they get a CVS order for their CBD product or whatever, or if you're hearing anything about that yet.
Definitely. And first and foremost, you just brought up some great points. At a high level, in terms of what a business owner should evaluate in terms of automating and streamlining their operations, and it's sort of this fundamental question in finance. To what extent do you outlay capital today for a somewhat uncertain benefit down the road? And you brought up very good considerations about floor space considerations, and as well as the dynamics that one machine might play with another. Again, the simple answer is an entrepreneur should be considering all these items. But it's also very important to model them and think about them correctly. Purchasing one piece of equipment that is defunct due to other changes you've made 6 months down the road is just swallowing cash. And so really thinking about that critically and testing that in terms of sensitivity. If purchasing a new filling machine can take you from manually filling one pod at a time and racing to cap it before you've lost too many terpenes to evaporation, and you can go from 20 employees on that line down to one. Say a convective shark filler that does 100 pods at once. That's an incredible efficiency, and it's you can really straightforward see the cost savings from an investment like that. Where some other marginal changes might not, they fall into the fallacy of thinking about future revenue and thinking that if you can do 10x more pods that you'll have 10x more revenue. That's not always the case, and I think it's smarter to think from the conservative track of direct cost savings than potential future revenue benefit, as it tends to be somewhat uncertain, and especially in this rapidly changing landscape, would be due to regulatory changes or due to something else that can erode very quickly. You brought a really good point too about financing, and I'm gonna nerd out here. I'll give a bit of background. I'm a CPA by profession, and so I'm sure everyone's familiar with this 280E, this Internal Revenue Code that, in short, makes you pay taxes on your gross margin as opposed to your net income. And there's some cool tricks you can do to essentially increase your cost of goods sold, reducing your gross margin, and reducing your tax liability. Primarily, it's called absorption costing, and it's taking things like, say, equipment, and it's saying that this machine ran for 100 hours, produced 100 widgets. Using my depreciation method, that cost me $1,000. You can actually deduct that to cost of goods sold. So some of the benefits of actually leasing equipment and financing it, as opposed to actually purchasing outright, is that an operating lease, that is a lease where you don't own the machine. There's 4 tests that are designed to kind of categorize a lease between operating or capital. But an operating lease, without going through these fancy accounting of absorption costing, can actually be deducted from your cost of goods sold. So, from a value add proposition, it's very simple, very straightforward, and especially for small operators that aren't familiar with the tax nuances of Form 3114 and so on and so forth. It's a great avenue. But increasingly, there's financing for more traditional purchasing. I think with the hopeful imminent passage of the state's SAFE Act, you'll be able to get typical loans like you get on a car at a few percent, and not the 10, 15, and 20% that's currently characteristic of the industry. And that's going to be huge, because you brought up a good point about factoring, and this is something we deal with all the time with our portfolio companies, and I actually get the great pleasure of modeling that and kind of asking the question of, in this factoring scenario, what is the effective interest rate, and how does that compare to, say, taking a note out with any of the variety of funds or investors in the space. And the biggest piece of advice I give you is to be very cautious when looking at those financing options. When you truly model them out, when you think about them in terms of the grand scheme of things, I've seen effective interest rates as high as 60% for some factoring, which is incredible.
For 30 days, so 37%. With that, I really appreciate you all being here with me today. So with that, we're going to roll this one up. I'm Josh Kincaid. This is your Cannabis Business Podcast, The Talking Hedge. Like, share, and subscribe, or don't, and I'm out.